Let's welcome back, and we are going to continue with our discussion on continuity of functions and differentiability, and then extending it to from univariate to multivariate function. And I think one of the good ways of expanding on that concept in a sense of is also to develop the geometry of Rn, which is very important when we do optimization in this course. So Rn is what? Rn is basically this n tuple x1, x2 to xn, put it in a vertical order, and each of the xi's comes from real number. This is basically our definition of the vector space Rn. We'll come to vector space a bit later on, but you are already aware of real line. You are already aware of the real line. Then the next, in 2 dimension, you are aware of x and y coordinate system, the plane. And then in 3 dimensions, you are aware of the xyz, the 3-dimensional system that we usually have. So you are aware of that also. So here it's only x. Here it is 2 tuple x1, x2. Here it is 3 tuple x1, x2, x3. And similarly, after this you cannot draw it, but you can generalize this concept to Rn. So these are also spaces, 2-dimensional space. This is 3-dimensional vector space. This is 2-dimensional vector space. This is a single dimensional vector space. And then you can have a n-dimensional vector space. This is our Rn. Now in Rn, I am going to first define a function known as vector norm. Vector norm is basically a notion of generalization of the distance concept. Okay, this is basically a generalization of the distance concept, and therefore a function f from Rn to R, a multivariate function usually, right? I mean, multivariate function from Rn to R is called a norm function, is called a norm if it satisfies following conditions. Maybe I'll put a grid on the paper behind to change it a bit. Yeah, I like this better. If it satisfies the following conditions. The first condition that it has to satisfy is that f of x is greater than or equal to 0 for all x in Rn, and f of x is 0 if and only if x is 0. So this is the condition of non-negativity and positivity if the vector is non-zero. That means only a 0 vector will have a 0 norm. Every other non-zero vector would have a norm which is positive, because distance is always positive. That's the idea. The second inequality that it has to satisfy is called the triangular inequality. So this is to say that f of x plus y is less than or equal to f of x plus f of y for all x and y in Rn. This is the triangular inequality. And the third condition that it has to satisfy is f of alpha x, alpha being a scalar, is same as modular absolute value of alpha times f of x. This is the condition of scalability, which is to say that if I scale the vector say 5 times or minus 5 times, the length will be scaled by 5 times. So that's exactly the thing. So it's quite clear that uh, non-negativity, triangular inequality, and scalability, these are the three basic properties of any distance function, and this is the thing that our vector norm should satisfy. Now, usually uh, we use for vector norms, we don't show it as function f, but rather vector norm functions are shown by double bar notation, which is that f of x is actually shown, this particular function is shown like this, in the double bar notation. Remember, it still remains a function, but the notation, there is a specific notation for it. Now, there is a class of for vector for Rn, there is a class of vector norms. There is a class of vector norms called as p norms, which are defined as follows. X of pth norm of this is equal to modulus of x1 to the power p plus x2 modulus to the power p, so on, so forth, up to xn to the power p, and then take the pth root of it for all integer p is greater than or equal to 1. So p is could be 1, 2, and so on. You 3 and so on. Of these vector norms, three vector norms are very three vector norms are routinely used. The first one, most common used, the first one is called the one norm, which is like taking the modulus of first x1, absolute value of first x1 plus x2 and so on up to the last of xn. So for example, suppose I have a vector like 5, 2, minus 1, and I am looking at its first norm, then it is going to be 5 plus 2 plus 1, which is equal to 8. The second norm that we use is x. The second norm is the square Euclidean distance norm, and this is like x1 square plus mod of x2 square and so on up to xn square, and then take the square root of it, like the Euclidean distance in 2D or 3D that you have always been encountering. So this is exactly that. Since these are real numbers, x1, x2 to xn are real numbers, their square is always positive. So for this, in this particular case, I could also write it for Rn like this. But this is a preferred notation because it holds for complex numbers also, but we are not dealing with complex numbers here. So I can also write it for Rn as follows. Here, of course, in the one norm, the modulus is very important to take because as you saw, I converted -1 to +1. So again, the illustration here would be that if I look at the second norm of 5, 2 and -1, then it is going to be square root of 5 square plus 2 square plus 1 square, which is 25 plus 4, 9 plus 1, 10. So this is going to be under root of 30. And the third commonly used norm is infinity norm, which is looking at max of all the coordinates of x1, x2 to xn. So this is what it is. And so if you look for this our illustration, then it is going to be 5 to -1. Infinity norm is going to be 5. All right. Now, actually, I mean, I'm right now just putting it as a homework. We need to show that the pth norm is indeed defined above is indeed a norm, which means to say that you need to verify these three conditions. Of course, I know at this point of time it is asking too much straight away by calling it as a homework problem, but I will do some part of it as I go along, but you should do it for the complete P family yourself as that's what I expect from you. Now, see this part, the first part, the first part is to verify is usually very straightforward, that the function is greater than or equal to 0, and 0 if and only if the vector itself is 0. Usually this is a very straightforward thing to verify. For example, you can see that in all our definition here, for example, first norm definition here, if this will be always greater than or equal to 0, very straightforward, because you are adding only the absolute values of the coordinates. And if only all of them are 0, then only it will be 0. So if x is 0, if and only if the vector norm is 0, if and only if the vector itself is 0. Again, here second norm also very straightforward. You are taking the square root of the sum of the squares, so it's greater than or equal to 0. And even if one coordinate is non-zero, it will always be non-zero. So for it to be 0, all coordinates should be 0. So therefore 0 if and only if x is 0. Similarly, the scalability condition, scalability condition is also quite straightforward to verify. For example, if I look at alpha times of x in the first norm, that is looking at alpha x1 by definition plus alpha x2 and so on up to alpha xn, because the vector has been scaled by this. But this is same as mod of alpha into mod of x1 plus modulus of alpha into modulus of x2 and so on up to modulus of alpha into modulus of xn, and then take the alpha common out, and you have a modulus of x1 plus x2 and so on up to xn, and then this is same as alpha times the first norm of x. Similarly, you can check that this is also equal to this, and of course this is also 0 if and only if x is 0. That I didn't check for the infinite now, but that is also very straightforward to check. So usually the property 1 and property 3, the property 1 and property 3 are very straightforward to check. The most of the work involved is actually in the non-trivial part of showing any function as norm, and not all functions are norms, but functions which are norm, to show that they are norm, usually the hard work is involved in triangular inequality. For example, let's take the second norm. I'm going to, in this course, use second norm the most. This is x1 square, sum of x1 square plus x2 square up to xn square, square root of this. This is the particular one that I'm going to use a lot, because it leads to it is a differentiable function. Now hold on. Before talking of differentiability, one should first of all talk of continuity. Before talking of differentiability, one should talk of continuity, and all norms are uniformly continuous on Rn. By that, what I mean to say is that any function, this is not necessary with this statement I am not making with respect to the p norm family here that I defined. This is something that I am talking in general. So in general means, what I am saying is, I don't know how you have defined it, but you have defined a norm, and you have defined a norm means it satisfies this condition with the length being equal to 0 or norm being equal to 0 if and only if x is 0, and it satisfies the triangular inequality, and it satisfies this. You could use the norm symbol also there. Alpha times of x is equal to mod of alpha times of f of x. If this is satisfied, if these three conditions are satisfied, then this function f, which I am showing as this, is continuous. So this is very nice. Without continuity, life is quite difficult. Trust me on that. This is a continuous function. Okay. So how do I go about? How do I show this? How do I prove it? Okay. So one thing which I am going to use is a condition. First, I am going to prove an inequality. See, x plus y is always less than or equal to this because the norm satisfies triangular inequality. If I look at x minus y, then this is same as x plus minus of y, and so this is also less than or equal to mod of x plus, not mod of s, norm of x plus norm of minus y, and so this is also less than or equal to norm of x plus norm of y. This is a done thing. One more nice property that I am going to show now you is that I can write this as greater than or equal to the difference of x and y vectors. See, think of x as a vector, y as a vector. The difference of x and y is greater than or equal to the length of x minus length of y. this is always there, right? I mean, I'll put it in a different blue color just to highlight this point, that this is trivially true. This is just a triangular inequality, right? This is the triangular inequality. This is trivially true. What I am in addition saying is that if I have a x vector and a y vector and I take their distance, like in 2 dimension, this is a x vector and this is a y vector, and so this is the x minus y is equal to z. So then this is my x minus y vector, is it not? This is my x minus y vector. So that length of this vector is greater than or equal to length of x minus length of y. Okay, let's prove it first of all. Let's, without much of discussion on it, let's prove it. Okay, so length of x can be written as, or norm of x can be written as norm of x minus y plus of y plus, but then this can be written by triangular inequality as length of x minus y plus length of y. Now take this y to the LHS. So subtract basically y on both the sides. So you will get length of x minus length of y is less than or equal to, a nice simple trick, and you got this this important result, significant result to show a continuity. Now using this result, I am going to show that this is a continuous function. Proof. By definition of continuity, what is our definition of continuity? Our definition of continuity is that you can choose any epsilon greater than 0. Okay, choose any epsilon greater than 0, then show that there exists a neighborhood delta. So neighborhood is along, it depends upon x and epsilon, and there is this delta neighborhood, which I call it as a delta neighborhood, such that for all y's around x in this delta neighborhood, all y's around x in this delta neighborhood, that is to say that y minus x is strictly less than delta in this delta neighborhood. The value of function at y minus the value of the function at x is going to be within plus minus sigma interval. It is going to be within plus minus sigma interval. This is what we want to show. So given any epsilon greater than 0, we have to show we have to show this existence of this delta neighborhood. We have to show this existence of this delta neighborhood where the delta has to be greater than 0, such that for all y's in this neighborhood, this condition should hold. This is what we want to show. So I am going to show that for this function, delta can be simply chosen to be exactly equal to epsilon. Okay, so choose, in other words, I am saying delta equal to epsilon. Now look at y minus x. Okay, so y minus x is, I have chosen y, all I am looking at all y's which are in the simply epsilon distance. The delta being chosen to be equal to x, I am looking at all y's which are in the epsilon distance of x, and this is the how I have this is the neighborhood. All y's are in that epsilon delta neighborhood. Instead of delta neighborhood, I am directly taking in the epsilon neighborhood of x. And just now I have shown that this is greater than or equal to this. So therefore you get that, see, y this one is less than or equal to this, but then this is strictly less than epsilon. So therefore this difference is strictly reflexively, not reflexively, transitively, this is strictly less than epsilon. Okay, so which part of it is now shown? This part is shown, right? This part is shown. What is left to be shown is this part. What is that part? Y minus x, just left to show that y minus of x is greater than minus of epsilon. Okay, so again come back to that inequality which I had derived. That's why I say this inequality is very important. Y minus x. Now my question is, if I interchange x and y here, will this inequality be still true? Can I say? Can I say this? Or I'll pause a minute for you to think on this. All right. So what I want to say is, one thing is that this is same, right? The distance of between x and y, whether you measure it as y minus of x and minus y, this is same. Now, what is the identity that we have been using? We have been using the identity that y minus x is less than or equal to length of y, length of x. Is it not? This is what we have used here, or okay, we actually derived the other round. Doesn't matter. Yeah, x minus y is less than or equal to x minus of y. These two are actually speaking. Uh, uh, one implies the other. These identities are like this, that one implies the other. Why? because if I interchange the and y with x, then what will happen? You will interchange x and y here. So you will interchange x and y minus x, and you x and y here. This gets interchanged. So it's equally true that y minus x, sorry, y minus x greater to length of y minus of x, and length of y minus x is also greater than or equal to x minus y. So the point is like this. Suppose length of y is greater than length of x. Let's say y minus x is equal to 5. So then first identity, what is it saying here? It is saying that y minus x is greater than or equal to 5. Now what is the second identity saying? Y minus x is greater than or equal to minus 5. But that is always true. If it is greater than or equal to 5, it will always be greater than or equal to minus 5, because it's relaxing it in some sense more further. So with this thought process, now we will use it the other way around. Right now we used that. This is what we used. So now we are going to use it the other way around. That y minus x is greater than or equal to x minus y, and this I have chosen to be strictly less than epsilon. So I get x minus of length of x minus of length of y is strictly less than epsilon, or if I multiply this whole thing by minus 1, then this will change to greater than. That is, y minus of x will be greater than minus of epsilon. See, the idea is like this. 3 is less than 5. Now suppose I multiply whole of this by minus 1. Then what do I get? Minus 3 is greater than minus of 5. So when I multiply it by minus 1, then this inequality less than will become greater than, and vice versa. So then what do I get here? No, I got here that y minus x is greater than or equal to minus epsilon, and I have already showed you that y minus x is less than epsilon. So then this is exactly what I wanted to show for continuity. Continuity requirement was that. So the idea is that if the neighborhood around x, which is to be chosen, is exactly equal to, is defined as set of all y such that x minus y is itself epsilon. So this delta itself is, this neighborhood itself is also epsilon neighborhood. That delta that we were trying to find out is actually also an, then the distance from minus distance from in this neighborhood is always between the minus plus epsilon. And since epsilon can be made as small as possible, and yet for every y in this neighborhood, this condition holds, continuity is derived for the norm function. So the point is, norm function, this only use the three properties of the norm function. It is always greater than 0, and 0 if and only if the vector is 0, the vector in Rn. 2, it should satisfy the triangular inequality, That is, if x and y are two vectors in Rn, then the norm of x plus y is less than or equal to norm of x plus norm of y, a triangular inequality. And third is the scalability property. That is, if you scale the vector x by alpha, the length of the new vector alpha x is scaled by the modulus of alpha. That is, it becomes modulus of alpha, absolute value of alpha times the original length of x. That's all that is required for a function to be a distance vector. And what we have shown using just these three properties, that such distance functions are always continuous. We will be using this later on in future. Continuity is a very important property, but I'm going to stop this lecture here now. Thank you.